Fever time! Bow, bow, bow! No!
There we go! There we go!
We crushed them in fast break points 17-8. Right, we crushed them in second chance points 20-11.
The Seattle Storm came into this game thinking they'd push Caitlin Clark around again, but they couldn't have been more wrong. After that infamous shoulder check from Skylar Diggins back in August 2024, the final clash between these two teams last season, Indiana had scores to settle. Their first face-off of the 2025 season wasn't just a rematch, it was unfinished business. But what happened next stunned everyone. On what turned out to be Caitlin Clark's toughest shooting night of the year, just 6 points total, her teammates transformed into absolute beasts on the court. So how did Aliyah Boston, Lexi Hull, and Kelsey Mitchell step up and write history, while also dismantling the Storm's bullying tactics? Let's break it all down, because this wasn't just a victory. This was payback. If you're riding with the fever, hit the comments and say, "I've got the fever." Coming into this one, especially after that tough matchup with the Las Vegas Aces, the question on everyone's mind was simple. Who steps up when Caitlin Clark doesn't catch fire? When the shots don't land and the game slows down, who's willing to grind for a win? Tonight, we got our answer. Rewind to August 18th, 2024, one of the most explosive moments of Clark's rookie season. Indiana walked into Seattle with momentum. Clark was setting the court ablaze, chasing 3 straight games with double-digit assists. Lexi Hull was having a breakout performance. The Fever were dominating, right in Seattle's house. Then, out of nowhere, it happened. Skylar Diggins delivered a blatant body check to Caitlin Clark, sending fans into an instant uproar. Clark had been hyping the crowd in the final minutes. Diggins, exiting the court, made direct contact. The replay made everything clear. It looked deliberate. And the internet erupted. Within 20 minutes, Dave Portnoy's reaction post had over 250,000 views. That's how quickly it blew up. Debate raged, but for most fans there was no doubt. It looked like a targeted move. Clark, to her credit, kept her cool. But you could read the anger on her teammates' faces. "Grow up," they seemed to say. "You're mad because your starters stayed in too long? Please." Seattle's coach even had the nerve to complain afterward. Diggins, visibly emotional, seemed to suggest Clark had somehow humiliated her team by playing too well. Really? As if the rookie wasn't supposed to play her game. As if blowing them out by 30 was some kind of crime. And here's what I love. Caitlin didn't fold. She didn't flinch. She mouthed it loud and clear. "Stop crying." She wasn't going to apologize for being great. And yet, the Storm acted like nothing happened. No apology. No accountability. They just walked off like they didn't just cheap shot the league's most electrifying rookie. To Fever fans watching at home, it felt like Seattle's strategy was clear. Stop Clark at any cost. Some even speculated they were intentionally trying to deny her that assist milestone. The game became more than a blowout. It became a moment of clarity for Clark and for the league. It shaped a new narrative. Suddenly, Seattle wasn't just another team. They were the villains. The ones seen as targeting the WNBA's brightest rising star. Fans began to believe it wasn't just physical. It was personal. And the way the Storm reacted only fueled that fire. Because if there's one thing this league hasn't figured out yet, it's how to handle Caitlin Clark. And trust me, they definitely haven't figured out how to stop the Indiana Fever. It wasn't just Caitlin Clark anymore. This Indiana Fever team has found its rhythm. Aliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, and Lexi Hull are rising together, and Caitlin is absolutely loving it. She's not just smiling, she's laughing at Skylar Diggins. Imagine throwing a body check at someone and then having the audacity to play the victim. Just play the game. When Indiana started their season 1-9, you didn't hear them complain. They didn't point fingers. They got up, regrouped, and kept pushing. That moment back in August wasn't just a physical hit. It was fuel. What nobody realized was that this single moment would light a fire under the fever that would burn for nearly a full year. Clark remembered. So did her teammates. The entire coaching staff carried that memory with them. They waited patiently for the day they could face Seattle again and prove those cheap tactics wouldn't shake them anymore. The fever had matured since that night. Fast forward to June 24th, 2025, and Indiana finally got their chance to strike back. And this time, they came ready for war. What made this revenge even more dramatic was that Caitlin Clark picked the worst night of her entire season to go cold. Coming into this game, she had been shooting lights out. But from the first possession, you could tell something was off. Her mechanics looked shaky, her confidence seemed a step behind, and her shots weren't even close. Clark finished the night going just 3 for 13 from the field and missed every single three-pointer she took, 0 for 6. Usually, those numbers mean Indiana's going to lose, especially on the road. Just before this 3-game West Coast trip, she was averaging nearly 20 points per game. But in this one, with only a few minutes left in the fourth quarter, she was stuck at just 6 points, her lowest total of the season. The Seattle crowd could feel it. They were loud, fired up, taunting with every miss. It was as if they were trying to recreate that nightmare from last August, mocking her, rattling her, breaking her rhythm. But here's where everything flipped. While Caitlin struggled, her teammates were silently preparing to write their own legacy. This wasn't last season's team that crumbled under pressure. These were battle-ready players who had watched Clark put them on her back game after game. And now it was their moment to return the favor. Aliyah Boston turned into a machine. She attacked the paint with an intensity Seattle couldn't match. Every drive, every basket, every spin move sent a message. She wasn't just scoring, she was dominating. The Storm had no answer for her firepower. At the same time, Lexi Hull was doing the dirty work. The kind of hustle that doesn't always go viral but wins games. She was everywhere. Diving for loose balls, boxing out taller defenders, crashing the glass like her life depended on it. She brought the grit, the grind, and the glue that held Indiana together in the middle of chaos. And then there was Kelsey Mitchell. The Storm tried to leave her open, and she made them pay. She found her rhythm from deep and started hitting shots that will end up in the WNBA record books. Every three-pointer added pressure on Seattle and confidence to Indiana's sideline. So while Caitlin Clark had her worst night of the year, her teammates used that very moment to prove the Fever were no longer a one-woman show. They rallied when their leader was off. They stood tall when it would have been easy to fold. They proved that this version of Indiana is stronger, tougher, and more united. This wasn't just a victory, it was a transformation. And the real story? It's only just beginning. Because now, the league knows. The Indiana Fever have arrived. And they're nothing like the team you thought you could push around. Kelsey Mitchell was locked in. After a few early misses, her mid-range jumpers started dropping, and she dialed in with a scorching 55% shooting clip from the field. But what followed wasn't just a strong shooting performance. It was the kind of basketball moment that gives you chills. It was a night when 3 Indiana Fever stars decided to have career-defining games, all at once. Aliyah Boston led the charge, attacking Seattle's defense with a skill set no one saw coming. She wasn't just scoring, she was reinventing her offensive game in real time. She bullied defenders in the paint, hit mid-range jumpers with confidence, and even knocked down perimeter shots with ease. Every time Seattle tried to adjust, Boston came back with a new move, a new angle, a new answer. It felt like she had unlocked a version of her game we hadn't seen before. Boston wasn't just scoring points. She was rewriting the scouting report. The Storm had no answer for her. What made it even more impressive was the context. This wasn't a routine matchup. This was a high-pressure, backs-against-the-wall type of game. It was a moment where champions rise or crumble, and Aliyah Boston rose with fire in her eyes. "These are the games you win in the margins," her coach said later. "When everything's on the line and you need to find out who you really are, that's what tonight was." By the final buzzer, Boston had dropped a career-high 31 points, eclipsing her previous best of 30 against Atlanta back in September. But this wasn't just a numbers thing. It was a takeover. She looked unstoppable. Storm defenders appeared lost, frustrated, and outmatched. Beyond scoring, she was all over the floor, grabbing 8 rebounds, delivering 3 crisp assists, and even snatching 2 steals. She controlled the game from end to end, playing with poise, power, and purpose. Whether it was finishing through contact at the rim or gliding through the lane for an easy layup, Boston was the engine behind the Fever's rise that night. As Mitchell continued to rein in jumpers and the rest of the squad fed off Boston's energy, one thing was clear: this wasn't just another game. This was a turning point. The Indiana Fever didn't just win on the scoreboard, they made a statement. And Aliyah Boston? She made history. While all eyes were on Clark, Lexi Hull was crafting a personal milestone that no one saw coming. For the first time in her WNBA career, she recorded a double-double, an achievement built on pure grit and relentless effort. Hull had never reached that milestone before, but against Seattle, she looked like she belonged among the league's best. She hauled in 11 rebounds, surpassing her previous career high of 9, which she set against Minnesota last season. But it wasn't just the numbers, it was how she got them. Hull outworked taller, stronger opponents, using hustle and determination to win nearly every 50-50 ball. She was crashing the glass like it was her job, grabbing boards over players with several inches on her. On top of her rebounding dominance, she poured in 15 points, perfectly complementing her all-around performance. Her timing was impeccable, cutting through the defense, hitting corner shots, and converting off the fast break. It felt like she was everywhere the Storm didn't want her to be. This was a side of Hull fans hadn't seen before, a version of her game that was explosive, focused, and fearless. Then, just when Seattle began to regroup, Kelsey Mitchell took over the closing stretch with surgical precision. She started dropping three-pointers with such confidence, it felt like the basket was twice its normal size. Mitchell finished with 26 points and knocked down 5 threes, a feat that wasn't just impressive, it was historic. That performance marked her 14th career game with at least 25 points and 5 made three-pointers. With that, she climbed to 5th all-time in WNBA history for such performances. Her shooting wasn't just hot, it was unstoppable. While the Storm tried everything to slow her down, Mitchell kept finding open looks and burying them. The more she scored, the louder Indiana's bench got. Her rhythm was electric, and the team fed off her confidence. Even as Clark struggled, Mitchell carried the scoring torch without hesitation. And it wasn't just Mitchell's skill. It was her timing. She stepped up exactly when the Fever needed her most, with ice-cold focus and elite shot-making under pressure. The Storm had no defensive answer. Every three was a dagger. Every drive was a statement. The beauty of this game wasn't just in the numbers, it was in the collective rise of 3 stars on one unforgettable night. Boston, Hull, Mitchell, all delivering career performances in the same high-stakes, revenge-fueled showdown. That's not coincidence. That's destiny. Seattle entered this game riding a 3-game win streak. Indiana, meanwhile, had dropped their last 2, including emotional losses to the Golden State Valkyries and the Las Vegas Aces. But this game flipped everything. The Fever came in wounded, but not broken. Their depth, fire, and refusal to be pushed around again stunned Seattle. When the final buzzer rang and the scoreboard read 94-86, the celebration said it all. Players jumped in joy. Hugs were exchanged like they'd just won the finals. The emotion wasn't just about snapping a losing streak or evening the season record at 7-7. It was about finally answering back after 10 months of frustration, after months of being underestimated. This win felt different, and everyone in the arena could sense it. In the post-game moments, Kelsey Mitchell summed it up perfectly when she said, "This feels like the first time we truly put a game together. The chemistry, the grit, the execution, it was all there." She acknowledged that there were still moments of struggle, but the team fought through breakdowns, supported one another, and maintained the highest level of communication they'd had all season. It wasn't just a win, it was growth. Head coach Stephanie White praised her players for recognizing who had the hot hand and sticking with what worked. It was a team effort from start to finish, one built on trust, adjustments, and accountability. And on this night, that combination was simply too much for Seattle to handle. She praised her players for the kind of growth that separates good teams from great ones. Compared to last season's squad, who may have crumbled under pressure, this Indiana Fever team stayed composed, even when Caitlin Clark couldn't find her shot. There was no panic, no finger-pointing. Instead, there was trust. Trust in one another to rise when it mattered. That's what mature basketball looks like. Aliyah Boston, despite picking up early foul trouble, bounced back with the kind of poise and dominance that leaves coaches speechless.